Hey, how you doing? It's me, Michael Kosta. This is the Tennis Anyone podcast, Friday, October 24th. Busy week. That's why it's Friday. I usually do these on Monday. So typically, you get them on a Monday. So you probably counted me out this week, but I was excited to talk to you all. And Friday is a little bit calmer. I hosted the Daily Show this week. Monday, I don't host the Daily Show. Jon Stewart hosts the Daily Show, as many of you know, but I wasn't able to do the pod because we were doing something with, what's it called? The hot wings people. We were eating incredibly hot chicken wings to and play a game against each other, some of the correspondents on the Daily Show. One of those strange, weird moments of your life where you go, I think, how did I end up here? Why am I doing this? Is this what show business is? How is this show more popular than the traditional TV show I'm on? Is it? And then you walk into that place and they've got pictures up of like every one of your acting and TV comedy heroes, and they've all done this insane thing called, is it called Hot Ones? I think it's called Hot Ones. It is very funny. You eat incredibly hot chicken wings, and you go up hotter and hotter as time goes on, and you answer kind of revealing questions about yourself, or when it came to this game that we played, about the Daily Show. It was fun. That's why I couldn't do the Tennis Anyone podcast on Monday, because I had indigestion the rest of the day, and I ate a chicken wing that, many actually, that were so hot that, you know, the food, it's no longer food. It's just pain. It's just, you can't even finish your thoughts. It reminded me of a time when my brothers, the three of us, went not cold plunging, but very close. And it was probably the water, knowing what I know now about cold plunging. It was probably 64, 65 degrees. So we jumped in. It was cool, but you're enjoying. You start to get used to it, and we're talking in the water, we're swimming, and all of a sudden, around 6, 7, 8 minutes, we would start sentences and we couldn't finish them. Our brain, we had just probably the beginning of hypothermia. We weren't shaking, but you just really start to slow down, and it's so interesting when your body, as a human, takes over your cognitive use, because it's trying to warm you up, cool you down, solve the pain problem. I mean, literally the insides of my gums, where I touched the wing. I mean, the one that I ate, Thermageddon, hot sauce. It was The Last Dab. Yeah, The Last Dab. So this comes from the Hot Ones website. That's the one we have. We had Hot Ones, The Last Dab, Thermageddon. Heat level is 11 out of 10. And this thing is pairings. Like, who is actually eating this to pair this with something? It's 2.3 million Scoville units. Let's just see what Tabasco Scoville units are. Tabasco Scoville units. How many Scoville units is Tabasco sauce? 2,500 to 5,000, okay? Tabasco, to me, isn't really hot, but it tastes like a hot sauce. But if you're familiar with Tabasco, what's Sriracha Scoville units? Does it even have any? Sriracha is kind of a tricky one, because Sriracha is an actual sauce, an actual name, but we all just call it Sriracha, but that's based off of that one. Sriracha, 1,000 to 2,500 Scoville units. So Da Bomb, Thermageddon is 2.3 million. All right? So by that, it's 1,000 times stronger than Tabasco. Let's see. Let's say 2.5 million. Bear with me, everybody. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. I'm fucking up. It's okay. This is going to be worth it, everybody. It's going to be worth it. Divided by... Sorry, I'm all fucked up right now. 2.5 million divided by 2,500, 1,000. That took way too long. My apologies. I want to make sure I had it right. 1,000 times stronger than Tabasco. And it was more fun than I thought it was going to be. It's one of those press events that, hey, we all have bosses, right? We all have bosses. Thank you for listening to Tennis Anyone podcast. Fun stuff to talk about today. We're basically just going to talk Saudi tennis. You look at the calendar right now, and we're going to talk Daily Show, the guests I had. I like talking about the guests. I like giving them more props. And we're going to talk Saudi Arabia, Masters 1000. Results are complicated right now. China's going on right now. China. WTA is in Japan playing a 500. They're in China playing a 250. The men, I mean, it's just like Kazakhstan, Belgium, Sweden, Austria, Switzerland. I turned on yesterday. It was Stan Wawrinka, who's still, watching him still gives me great pleasure, even though he's not even close to the player he once was. But that backhand, the chip returns. I mean, just what, I used to say chips are for parties, but Stan Wawrinka still has a nice chip return. Basically, the next big thing is October 27th, Paris, ATP 1000. And, there will be another 1,000 in Saudi Arabia. So let's do this first. We'll come back to the guests later. We'll finish with the guests. Andy Roddick did a nice quick recap on this. There was a press release that went out. I'm going to read this New York Times article on the Saudi Arabia Masters 1000. It is a non-mandatory event, which sounds kind of good. Like you don't have to play at players, but then you think about how much money Saudi Arabia has, and they're just going to offer appearance fees to everyone. And keep in mind, they all just went to the Six Kings Slam, which I kept calling the Six Slams King. My apologies, last Tennis Anyone pod, which was unwatchable, everybody. Unwatchable. I mean, I clicked on it on Netflix, 4 hours long, and I quickly sped through it. And there was nobody in the stands. Prakash Amritraj and the rest of the crew are feigning and faking interest. I know money talks. And I drew the distinction before. To me, there's a much bigger difference between an advocate of American free speech, a comedian, taking the money and going to Saudi Arabia when many of those people campaigned for Trump or really brought it up a lot during our campaign, talking about free speech and cancel culture, blah, blah, blah. And then they take the money and go to Saudi Arabia versus a tennis player who's like, me hit ball good, Saudi pay me money. So I go. I want my athletes to be aware of where money's coming from. I want my actors to speak up. I want public figures, if they truly believe that something is wrong, to speak up. That's important to me. That is an obligation. I would make more money if I didn't. I would be invited to Saudi Arabia Comedy Festival if I didn't. But I just think it's our obligation, and I teach my kids, and I hope you teach your kids. In I guess where it gets confusing is maybe me and you are on different levels of how important it is, right? That's the big thing, because there are times in the previous Trump administration where I hadn't been, I wasn't feeling the same level of worry, and many of my friends were. And it's hard to kind of follow that and listen to that. And every time you go on Instagram, that's what you have. But being an empathetic, growing person, I now recognize where they were emotionally versus where I was, and probably now where I am emotionally. It just feels like we're getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. further along the line. The night of the election when Trump won, I said, you don't lose your democracy immediately. You lose it slowly and then immediately. Slowly and then suddenly, to quote that book. Anyways, my point. It was a reference to, I forget the book, Hemingway maybe. One of the characters asked the other character how he became bankrupt, and he said, slowly and then suddenly. That's kind of how I feel about democracy right now. So I feel the obligation to speak up. But Yannick Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, Taylor Fritz, these aren't our society's intellectuals. These are our society's athletes. I certainly love, and I believe it sounds and creates a more well-rounded society when our athletes are better balanced. And Casper Ruud says, hey, we should be looking at where the money's coming from. Hey, let's not forget about China right here. China. They also have human rights problems. So I love when an athlete has the balls, pun intended, to do that. But man, do I have a low bar for athletes. I just really don't expect Taylor Fritz to be out there, pushing for the activists who've spoken against Saudi Arabia that are currently locked in prison to be released. But maybe we should. Let's read this article. Saudi Arabia gets ATP Masters 1000 tournament it craved as early as 2028. Saudi Arabia will host an ATP Masters tournament as early as 2028 in the latest move in nearly 3 years of power battles, negotiation, and inertia that have come to dominate the top of tennis. Don't forget the women's year-end event is played in Saudi Arabia. SURJ, the sports division of the kingdom's public investment fund, and the governing body of men's tennis confirmed Thursday the event will be a 56-player draw over 1 week. It will not be a mandatory event, which means the previous Masters 1000s are mandatory events, and they don't pay appearance fees. But because this won't be a mandatory event, they can pay appearance fees. The exact timing and venue of the tournament remains uncertain, though it will most likely occur in February. The same month, the ATP Tour holds smaller events in Doha, Qatar, and Dubai, United Arab Emirates. You know that little Australian Open to Palm Springs break where you actually miss the Australian Open and you wish there was, well, you don't. You don't, because Palm Springs happens and you just get so excited. They're going to fill that with tennis. We need less tennis. We need less tennis. There's an argument that some of these Saudi money is going to go to buy back some of these tournaments to, I didn't turn on my thing. Let me do it real quick. How do I turn this off? Do not disturb. That's what's happening. 1 hour. They're going to buy back these tournaments and hopefully open up the weeks. Again, we've got way too much fucking tennis. Too many weeks of tennis. We need at least 2 months off. At least 2 months. That'll let the players get refreshed, actually work on things. It'll let the fans miss the sport. Andrea Gadenzi, the chairman of the ATP Tour, suggested Thursday there would be a 2-tournament swing in February, one in West Asia and one in South America. He did not commit to any firm plans. The base prize money will be in line with other ATP Masters 1000. This is a proud moment for us and the result of a journey that's been years in the making. Saudi Arabia has shown a genuine commitment to tennis, not just at the professional level, but also in growing the game more broadly at all levels. PIF's ambition for the sport is clear. We believe fans and players alike will be amazed by what's coming. Our focus is on ensuring that we deliver a world-class tennis tournament. For the tournament, it represents a contradiction in ambition and investment, which has pushed for a mixed 1,000-level event to start the tennis season in January, when it initially began pursuing ownership of a tournament in 2023. That scale of event may still come to pass in the future. Everyone seems to feel that Tennis Australia and Craig Tiley don't want an ATP Masters 1000 event before the Australian Open. Our ambition. Okay, the impact of the tournament will continue to reverberate as plans for its thought even before players are pressing for higher proportions of revenue from a smaller number of tournaments. per season. The Grand Slam and ATP tours are still pushing for greater control. How did tennis get here? I don't know if I really give a fuck about that. And we just had the Six Kings Slam, which was broadcast by Netflix. So certainly this is a strange event, this Masters 1000. John Wertheim made the comment that this Masters event is actually paying the other Masters events also a fee. So Saudi Arabia is doing what venture capital companies do. They just barge into the arena, overbuy, overpay, ask questions later. And, it's they are buying their way into tennis. If this is the stance of a more progressive society, maybe we'll look back on this in 20 years and say this is great. Maybe we will. I don't know. There's no point in us bringing a tennis tournament to Saudi and then hoping this fixes anything. We've got to coordinate our efforts to drive participation and engagement because it's just not there. I mean, no one was at the Six Kings. No one was sitting there. In a wider effort by the country's leader, Mohammed bin Salman, to grow Saudi Arabia from the petroleum kingdom into a destination for events and sports entertainment funded by its petroleum riches. I mean, literally, the Six Kings had the government's oil company on the net posts. Armor Corps, whatever the fuck it is. Prakash had to say it every time he. It wasn't a good look for all those commentators. It was not a good look. I know you made a lot of money. It's not a good look. Its human rights record has been extensively criticized, with organizations and charities labeling its pursuit of sports acclaim as sports washing of its treatment of women, LGBTQI plus people, and descendants against its ruling regime. The PIF has declined to comment on its relationship with the Saudi state. It is the Saudi state. In its initial strategy of fast, large investments, upended golf after the kingdom invested hundreds of millions of dollars to sign top players to a rival to the PGA Tour dubbed Live Golf. Those efforts sparked an expensive litigation and garnered a stream of negative publicity. Golf leaders, its players, and the PIF are still trying to work out the details of a deal to reunite the tours. The kingdom has taken a different tact in tennis. Saudi Arabia wanted to become a significant force, more significant than its neighbors, Qatar and United Arab Emirates. Both countries host WTA 1000 events, but their ATP Tour events are 500 level. Saudi Arabia's designs on a combined ATP and WTA 1000 event would have eclipsed them. The tennis calendar is a complicated thing. It's already overcrowded. Gaudenzi originally wanted to schedule this tournament for the first week of the season. Tennis Australia's Craig Tiley and his partners at the other Grand Slams have so far stopped that because it would have subsumed the warm-up tournaments for the Australian Open. There's like Brisbane. Is there Melbourne? No, that's Melbourne. There's Sydney. There's that United Cup thing. Other factors complicate the prospect of a January event in the kingdom. Top players had little appetite for opening the season with a 1,000 level event. Yeah, you don't want to start, but they're playing too much. This essentially hurts tennis to have this much tennis. But also the players are fucking stupid and they say yes to every exhibition. So confidential discussions. This is a pretty solid article. If you're really interested, it is at NewYorkTimes.com, The Athletic. It has the dates. I mean, the Dallas Open is a 500 event. It's sitting there in the beginning of February. It doesn't look good. Rotterdam. There's like 500s, 250s. They're all going to be surpassed by the 1,000. The last statement is, there's a time to figure out this tennis calendar Tetris. By late 2026, this should all be hashed out, but it will involve a reckoning with the tennis calendar and its would-be status as a global sport that has been a long time coming. Hey, if this gets the ATP calendar If what they needed was an injection of Saudi money so they could eliminate 6 weeks and give the players a real break and give us a real break, I guess that's good. And, this might sound funny for those of you that follow the podcast, and I went so hard against the Riyadh Comedy Festival. I don't mind this as much as the comedy because it's sport. And, if we're going to be critical of Saudi's human rights and people that speak out against the Saudi government being in prison right now, well, then we got to look at all the tournaments out of all the different places, to Casper Ruud's point. But again, I'm not sure I don't know who pays you in China when you play in China. Is it the Chinese government? Because this is coming from Saudi Arabia. And I do believe this is sport washing. I do believe this is, we've done a lot of fucked up stuff, but let's just get the glitz and glamour and bring the tennis and the golf and the movies and and people will start to see us as something different than we are, or they'll start to, as time goes on, being totally even unaware. So that's that. That's the big news this week in tennis. I had a wonderful time hosting the Daily Show, as I always do. My first guest, first Monday, John hosted Bernie Sanders. He's got this tiny little pamphlet out called Fight Oligarchy. Oligarchy is a system in which a small number of extremely wealthy individuals control the economic, political, and media life of a nation. It is a system in which ordinary people have very little power to determine the future of their country. If you're an American, it is the system in which you are living. That must change. In the wealthiest nation on earth, we must build a political movement that creates a government that represents all Americans, not just a handful of billionaires. Great point. Bernie Sanders, love his principled takes. He doesn't really get into the nitty gritty of how he wants this stuff to happen, but he says the right shit, and he reminds us that we're too smart and too wealthy a country to not have the things that other countries have. Universal health care, more income, balanced economy and income. I mean, he mentioned that Elon Musk has more individual wealth than the bottom 52% of Americans. I mean, that fucking sucks. Fuck that guy. That sucks. And the fact that he's in our government is even worse. Tuesday, Catherine Bracey wrote this book, World Eaters, about venture capital and about how so many problems with tech are because of the system that incentivizes them. And they need money, so they get money, but then these investors need results, so they push shittier product for us, the consumer. And they try to make money, huge money, and just the slow and steady. She talked about the companies that hit singles and doubles as opposed to always hitting grand slams. No one gives a fuck about the companies that hit singles and doubles. They don't get their venture capital money. And interesting read. Check out World Leaders. Catherine Bracey is smarter than all of us and tackles a very interesting subject. One that, I wouldn't typically pick up a book on venture capital, but it makes a lot of sense as to where we are and why everywhere I go, it uses this software. And I can't even ski with my family without signing up 4 different online accounts, and they can track me, and that's good for the VC. And it's clunky and shitty. Wednesday, I had Ryan Holiday, the Daily Stoic. You know him. You've seen his clips. He's that young man. He owns a bookstore near Austin. He really loves Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He's a kind of a modern day aggregator of ancient philosophy. Many of his TikToks I've kind of written down and put on my bathroom mirror. Things like comparison is the thief of joy. All things in moderation. These are things that the ancient philosophers would pine on and discuss. And Ryan Holiday has a great way of aggregating that and sharing it for us these days. One of the clips you may have seen is where he talks about how list all the things that make you anxious, all the times in your life that you've been anxious. And there's one common denominator, and that is you. You do have the ability in all those anxious times and stressful times. You were the one. You were the same as all those events, and it's up to us. I started the interview by talking about how all this shit is easier said than done, but that is the trial. That is the journey that is life. Ryan has a book out now called Wisdom. Wisdom is the way. I should know that, shouldn't I? I'm a little brain dead today because these hosting weeks take a lot out of you. But he wrote in the book that he signed to me, and I'm so thankful he did. He talks a little bit about humor in the book, but the French philosopher Montaigne. I should have looked it up. Montaigne. His brother died in a tennis accident. And here is one of the stranger events recounted by Montaigne. You know, I should just look up Montaigne on the wiki. Let's look him up. I think it's Montaigne, French philosopher. There he is. Michael Montaigne. Should we look it up? How to say it? Does anybody give a shit? Montaigene, 1570s. Once you stop caring, the results come. Yeah, it's easier said than done. But yes, you're right. What was Montaigne's famous quote? One of Montaigne's famous quote is, "A man who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears." Another well-known quote is, "My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." That's funny. I always thought that was Twain. So many great quotes get attributed to Mark Twain. I even had in high school, I remember writing down, "I've had many troubles in life, most of which haven't happened." In fucking high school. Come on, Kosta, you pussy. His motto, "What do I know?" also encapsulates his skeptical, philosophical approach. On misfortune, my life, the greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. Ooh, I like that. That's great. A man who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears. That's true. So anyways, fuck all that. His brother died in a tennis accident. This is him. This is the French philosopher. Quote, "If I must bring myself into this, a brother of mine, Arnaud, Lord of Saint Martin, 23 years old, who had already given pretty good proof of his valor while playing tennis, was struck by a ball a little above the right ear," which is a really dangerous part. Our temple's right here. I know this from when my kid fell down. This is always where you get fucked up. That soft spot right there. "With no sign of contusion or wound, he did not sit down or rest. But 5 or 6 hours later, he died of an apoplexy that his blow gave him. With such frequent ordinary examples passing before our eyes, how can we possibly rid ourselves of the thought of death and of the idea that at every moment it is gripping us by the throat," said the French philosopher. Now, I did a little more research on this. He definitely would have died playing real tennis, or also called court tennis. And we've talked about that on this podcast before. It's that kind of almost racket ball-y, long, indoor, almost looks like a high-lie court. Maybe we also call it stick tennis or stick-a tennis. The ball looks like it's smaller. It looks like it would be a little bit harder, the ball. But look, it's a crazy life I live where the host of The Daily Show is talking to the guest, Ryan Holiday, who I'm a fan of, and he signs his book to me. Hey, here's a crazy thing. A very famous French philosopher's brother died in a tennis accident. I mean, that's nuts. It reminded me of the fib, the rumor that Stefan Edberg once killed the guy at the net with a serve. But I think if I read that correctly, it was the guy who did the net cord and he might have had a heart attack or something. He might have actually died. I don't know. I think maybe that happened. Like he had a heart attack after the match or something. And maybe Stefan, like, I forget. Somehow there was some weird connection. Anyways. Thursday was the 2-month anniversary of my brother's death. The cause was more conventional than a tennis ball, a rampaging hog, cancer, likely self-induced. Also, I read that his brother might have been sleeping with his wife. So it's possible that he played tennis with his brother and tried to fucking hit him in the temple. Huh? You think they didn't have conspiracies in the 1570s? So that was cool. Thank you, Ryan Holiday, for a fun conversation and a fun anecdote about the tennis player, a famous French philosopher's brother dying in a tennis accident. Crazy. And then yesterday, Jeff Tweedy, the frontman for Wilco, his triple album is out. Really enjoyed talking with him. He plays with his kids, which is awesome. On the band, you know, they're 29 years old. One of them's the drummer. I said, "What's it like playing with your kids?" He said, "Well, I do pay them." That's true. For them, it might just be like a job. It's a bunch of questions I forgot to ask Jeff because we were just talking about the creative process. And you know, when I first looked at his triple album, I thought, fuck, I got to listen to this whole thing. This is a ton of music. But then as I learned and researched about him, I thought it's really cool that in today's day and age where everything is short and fast and one song and that video clip is too long, he's doing the complete opposite. He's saying, I'm going to make a triple album. I want to take you on a journey. And I kind of love that. And he started the conversation by saying, I mean, people are listening to podcasts for 4 hours. Why can't they listen to an album for 2 hours? And it's true. And it just is a good reminder that, like, look, understand the trends, see them, but you don't have to do the trends. Do whatever the fuck you want. If you're authentic, if it comes from a real place, that's what people respond to. So do your thing. Be you, motherfucker. It's something I'm still learning myself. Ladies and gentlemen, all of my new dates: Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Annapolis, Maryland, Buffalo, New York, Ithaca, New York, Shirley, Massachusetts, East Greenwich, Rhode Island, Denver, Colorado. Those are in January. I'm taping my special January 24th at the Comedy Works South in Denver, Colorado. Get your tickets, michaelcosta.com. Basically doing a bunch of Northeast shows until January 23rd and 24th, which I'll be in Denver taping my special. It's going to be so sick. The next dates are November 7th, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where Jesus was born, and November 8th, Annapolis, Maryland, which is a matinee show. That's for you guys, because Costa's 46 years old now, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Game, set, match, Costa. Thank you for listening to Tennessee One Podcast. Please leave a rating and a review. Please leave a comment on YouTube. We thank you. We support you. Move your feet. Aggressive swings. Safe targets. I played today. The sport is so much harder than it looks, you guys. Get out there. Get out there even for 20 minutes. I would say in my head, kick serve out wide, hit the ball to the open court, and I would hit a kick serve out wide. I would get the perfect ball, and I would just fucking miss. Like, what? You did it all. You have the whole thing in your head. Kick serve out wide, hit a forehand cross court over the low part of the net to the open court. I would hit the kick serve. I would get the short ball. I wouldn't move my feet, and then I would just miss it. What are you fucking doing? Thanks for listening to the Tennessee One Podcast.